Hi, I'm Bri.
Hi, and I'm Vicky.
Today we're going to be talking through these 4 AJS 125cc modern classic style motorcycles. We've each spent about a week on each of the bikes, testing them out so that we can talk through each of them in detail, give a bit of a comparison, and at the end tell you which one was our favourite. So we've both got some slightly different experience riding, so we can bring a different perspective to the review. Vicky?
So I'm a learner rider. I've had my CBT. I've been on the road for 2 years. This is my bike, the AJS Tempest Roadster.
Yeah, really cool that we've got your bike with us here in the review today. My bikes are slightly different. So I ride a 70-year-old BSA Bantam D1 from 1952 and also a Suzuki SFV 650. So I currently have an A2 motorcycle licence, which means that I'm restricted to 47 horsepower and will be shortly upgrading to the full A licence. AJS is a British brand and these bikes are currently built and imported from China. They use an engine that's based on the Yamaha 125cc engine, and that's in all of the bikes, so there's definitely some similarities between each of them, including the similar frames. We're going to go through each of the bikes in detail, starting over here with the Tempest Scrambler.
So I quite like the look of the bike. I like the sort of colour, it really pops. I also like the black rim wheels as well. I think they complement each other. Also, I liked the adjustable gear levers. This is like a, what you call it, an extra you can add onto the bike. But I think it works for me because I've got quite long fingers and I need to adjust them to the right space. Also like the mirrors. They've got good visibility when you're on the road.
Yeah, see, it is interesting actually that you mentioned about really liking those, because my younger brother actually has this bike and he's had it since he did his CBT, had his L plates on it and has recently upgraded to his A1 licence. And he has got these adjustable levers on, and I know he's had a really good experience with them and deliberately chose to put them on the bike, but he has much bigger hands than I do. I wasn't super keen on these myself actually. I expected to like them a bit more than I did, but I also found that the levers on this are quite stiff, which I don't have the strongest hands, so perhaps wasn't the best thing for me. Something I do really like on this bike actually design-wise is this number plate on the front. I think it gives it a really cool look, and you can see this one has been to the Mali Mile, which that wasn't me. I didn't get to take it to the Mali Mile, but it was something that I actually noticed with the bike. So this had obviously had quite a lot of fun a few months ago at the Mali Mile off-roading, and that was unfortunately a little bit noticeable in the clutch. So I was riding this on road and started to notice some problems with the clutch, and it just wasn't engaging correctly, and eventually the clutch lever ended up going so stiff that it wasn't actually usable for me. The great thing about that was, however, is we got in contact with AJS and they were able to collect, fix and return the bike in, what was it, about 2 days?
2 days, yeah.
Yeah, which was fantastic, to be honest. Something else I really like for off-road this time is the foot plate. So the foot peg here, you can see it's got this, the grooves, and that helps to keep my boot in place, which means my foot isn't going to slide off if my boot is all muddy. So that's something that I really like. But I remember you mentioning you weren't quite as keen on that.
I had the opposite. So they've got grooves, but also my boots have grooves. So they get stuck in the grooves, so my foot doesn't want to really move when I'm riding. So changing gear was a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
So it became a bit more of an irritation whilst riding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I could just use a different pair of boots next time I go out on the bike and then it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't too major, but it was just something that it was just a bit annoying.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's something to consider if you're more going to ride the bike on road rather than off.
Yes.
And I know you mentioned about the lights as well when you're riding on the road.
Yes, so each bike has the same dials. If it's a really sunny day, it is a struggle to see the neutral light and the indicator lights. So that's something to consider. And also, obviously, if you ride in the dark, which I did ride in the dark, they're really clear and you can see them really well. So
yeah, they light up really nicely in the dark. And I do love this sort of retro style with the AJS and the two different sections. And on lights as well, these ones have got the the sort of floppy reflectors that are designed so that they will bounce if they are if the bike were to fall over when you're off-roading. And these ones have actually got slightly bigger reflectors than on the Desert Scrambler, which I quite like because I think when you're on the road it gives you a little bit of extra safety having the slightly larger lights and reflectors on the bike. So that's something that I did really like, and I think for me those are the main things for this one.
Yeah, I did like the bike. It was just little minor things like the pedals for me. But yeah, a good bike, I thought.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
Shall we go look at the Desert Scrambler?
Yeah, what's next? Right, so this is the first one I got.
Yeah.
I was quite interested to try it because it's different from the Tempest Roadster, and I've never really had a scrambler bike yet.
Yeah.
Hence being a learner. So I was quite excited to have it. I quite liked the colour, the whole design really. I think it's quite a unique design. It's based on Mike Jackson, I think it is. But he had a scrambler in.
Yes, the 1971
Yes.
Desert Race. It's based off of, which I think is a really cool style.
Yes, yeah, it's quite like the teardrop, like engine. Engine sign. Tank,
Yes.
sorry.
No.
I quite like the high exhaust as well, and it sounds actually quite good as well. It's quite loud.
A really good point about the exhaust actually, and I know I mentioned that my brother has got a Tempest Scrambler. He actually chose after a while to buy the Desert Pipe for it and add that on there just to get that sort of the extra noise that this one has, which is really nice. Anything else that you particularly liked about this one?
Again, it had the same mirrors, so the visibility was really good. Also, the clutch was very good on this as well. I never had any issues. I think the suspension was really good. I did a bit of, a slight off-road with it, being a learner.
Yeah.
Didn't go too far. But yeah, the suspension was really good. Kicked out, and I managed to stay on the bike. So that's all good.
Fantastic. How did you find the riding position? Because I know this one, the pegs are slightly, they're in a slightly different location than they are here. They're a little bit further back towards the stand. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm quite tall. I'm 5'10".
Yeah.
So I do quite like a bike to be taller for me.
Yeah.
I know obviously as a woman sometimes you want to look for a smaller bike, but I actually want to look for taller bikes. So yeah.
Yeah, I found this one sort of really comfortable shape and style to ride. One thing that wasn't as comfortable actually, after you've been riding the bike for a while, obviously parts of it are going to get quite hot, and when you put it over onto the stand, you notice this section of the pipe, unsurprisingly, is hot, but that is very noticeable on your leg. And to be honest, riding in the winter with that against my Kevlar jeans was quite nice. Kept me nice and toasty on the way back from the coast. But I do think in the summer or in a city riding, that could be potentially a bit of an issue with how hot that pipe can get against your leg.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same thing. As soon as I put it on the side stand, you could feel it on your leg, definitely.
Yeah.
So don't keep it there for too long.
Did you want to mention about the toolkit actually? Because I know you used that when you were putting your L plates on and off of the bike.
So I had to take my L plate off every time, obviously, off the bike onto the one I was about to ride. They have a little it's like a rubber toolbox in the back here. It's quite useful. Has a few little things in there. Little spanners.
And when you took this out and about, what did everyone else think of it?
Yeah, nothing but positive reviews really. A lot of people really liked the look of the bike. They thought it was very cool. I felt I did make me smile, this one out of the two scramblers. It was probably,
Without giving up too much away for later. But yes, I also did really enjoy this one. So those are the two scramblers. Should we move on and look
the next
at the road bikes?
Yeah. So this is currently my bike at the moment, riding and learning on. I've found it's been a really good bike to learn on. The gears when you change are very specific, so you know what gear you're in. Yeah, and I found it's been a really nice bike to learn on. The seat's very comfortable. All the bikes have a kickstart. All the bikes can be started. We've tried that.
Yeah, definitely works better when they're on the centre stand.
Definitely,
I think.
yes. The bike came with the armors. The visibility, I have to say, is not great being on the side of the handlebars, but I preferred the two scramblers.
But these aren't original
These
AJS
aren't original,
ones, are they? You can
no.
see the slots where you could add in, you know, if you want to go back to what they have on these sort of bike, which just sounds like you're probably keen to do after testing out these ones. So I can see you've also got a quad lock attachment on your bike.
Yes, this is something I've added at a later date. I sometimes like to use my sat nav, so having the phone right in front of me makes life so much easier. Sort of travelling about on the bike, because we do like to go on little adventures with the 125. So
there seem to be good positionings on each of the bike that you could add that feature on if you wanted to do so.
Also, I've added on heated hand grips as well. That's like,
oh, nice.
Yeah, not from AJS, but just for me, just generally for the winter, like travelling in and out of work. That's always an option, extra you can add on as well, which is quite good.
Yeah. Anything that you're less keen on?
Having tried all the bikes now, I've noticed on the Tempest Roadster that the rear brake, you have to press it a lot to get it to actually work. I don't know if that's something that is standard with the Tempest Roadster. Yeah. But yeah, the rear brake, I have found that it is not the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel I have to use the front brake more because of that. Yeah.
And the styling of the light is a little bit different on the Tempest Roadster on the back. What do you think of it?
Yes, I love the lights on this actually. Yeah. It's like that classic look, sort of bullet-shaped lights. But the lights at the back, I'd probably say, I prefer if we're going to go into the Cadwell next, but the Cadwell light I prefer if it was on this one. I think this is a bit square and plastic, a bit
It's quite
clunky.
80s, isn't it?
Yes. I don't feel it really goes with the bike as much as it would with the Cadwell one, I think. But again, you can change that. AJS will just, you can send it apart, but yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And finally, shall we have a look at the Cadwell?
So we both agreed when we went out on this that we got the most attention probably from this bike than anything.
So many people were interested to hear about this bike, and I had so many people ask me, oh my goodness, what year is your bike? And they were very surprised to hear that this year is 2022, because it does have a really cool old school styling. Love the Cafe Racer style. You just don't see much, you know, in the way of modern classic, you know, 125s that look like this, that it's such a cool bike, but it's got the reliability that obviously, unfortunately, classics don't have. What did you think of it out on the road?
It was good. It was, the seat for me was a bit hard.
Yes.
I think it's one of these bikes you maybe would use for the weekend, sort of meeting friends, having coffee. So you weren't on the seat very long, but yeah, it's very, very hard. And they have foot pegs for a second person. They do. And I don't think that would be really possible.
No, my partner and I very quickly tested the pillion pegs and whether or not you could fit a second person on it, and the answer, quite bluntly, is no. You can't really fit a second person on there. But for a single person, I have to say, I really enjoyed riding this bike. The seating position was a little bit uncomfortable, I have to be honest. So the way that it has, my legs were sort of right up, which I'm not used to as a style. And I think for a traditional Cafe Racer, you're likely to have the foot pegs a little bit further back. Although, to be honest, that's likely to be even more uncomfortable, isn't it? I rode this, you know, on a few journeys that were sort of over an hour in length, and towards the end of the time it had got quite uncomfortable, but initially wasn't too much of an issue. How did you feel the handling and speed compared to the other bikes?
I found this to be the quickest off the mark out of the four. I also really love the riding position, like how
Yeah?
it's slightly different. But unfortunately, like being 5'10", it's just a bit too short, like too small for me.
Yeah.
It got uncomfortable after a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that. I don't know, you said it might be a bit short for...
Yeah, I think for me, I quite like a sort of a bigger bike anyway. And this one was a little bit on the small side. I'll demonstrate. So I'm 5'6" for reference. So you can see here, I've more than easily flat-footed the bike. I've got bent legs on either side. So for anyone who is looking for a 125, who struggles to find something that is on the smaller side, you know, sort of if you're anywhere less than 5'6", this would be amazing. But even for my height, you know, not a problem, and I think it looks pretty cool, to be honest. And then what we mentioned before about sort of it being quicker off the mark, I also have to say I feel like it handled quite differently on the road, unsurprisingly, to the scramblers where it's got the smoother tyres. It felt, so I haven't ridden a classic, I haven't ridden a modern 125 other than on my CBT. The only 125 I ride is 70 years old. So this felt a bit like I was on a tiny little racing bike. I really enjoyed this actually, and the way that it cornered, it was really lightweight, really easy to throw around, and I love that. Whereas something like the Scrambler, where it's got the very different tyres on it, I think you can really feel when that's leaning over a little bit.
Roundabouts,
But gosh, this felt really nippy.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Again, I had like a smile on my face riding it through the towns and cities. But yeah, it was, it is a good bike. It's just a little bit too short for me.
Too short for you, yeah. One sort of little drawback I found on this bike actually, and in some ways on all of them, was so I have a disc lock that I like to put on my bikes, and when I'm not riding, I like to be able to attach it onto something like this. But because of the way that these springs are, if I attach my lock round here, it will swing in to the springs and get itself stuck. So it's not particularly convenient to put that on. But that is a personal logistics thing. Equally with this bike, it's nowhere really to attach your bag onto the back, which is something, you know, on the Roadster, for example, you've got a nice space to be able to do that on the back where you do have kind of a full-size pillion seat. Likewise on the Scramblers, you've got somewhere to put a bag on the back if you want it. And that is a little bit of a convenience drawback for me with the Cadwell. But I think if I was going to pop into town, you know, if I lived somewhere that was already in a town, in a city, popping out for a coffee on a Sunday morning in this, it gets a lot of attention, it's reliable, and it's lightweight, so you can park it anywhere you want. It's great for that.
I think if you love like classic motorcycles, but you want somewhere to start, this would be a really good bike, I think, going into it, because then it just shows you still love a classic bike, but you're learning at the moment, and then maybe in the future you might go to a more classic bike. So I think it's a really good starting place.
Certainly. I think for something with L plates on as well, because when I was on L plates, I was riding my old BSA, and that is obviously, you know, there's a lot more of reliability issues, things like that. You know, the idle speed isn't quite right, so you've got to get off at traffic lights sometimes in re-kickstarter. You don't have any of those problems with this. So for someone who's interested in classic bikes but is still learning, this is a fantastic option. So we've had a bit of a look at each of the bikes, and in summary, yes, they're 125s, you know, they've all got the same engine and it hasn't got loads of power, it hasn't got loads of torque, but that's to be expected with a 125, really. However, there are so many positives to these bikes. They are a fantastic price point. I think the styling is wonderful. You know, they're very attractive looking bikes and get loads of positive attention. And there's certainly some things that you can forgive for the price point. But looking at favourites, you know, let's start with the road bikes. Vicky, if you were going to pick between the two, which one are you riding home on?
My own bike, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think this is a good all-rounder. I think you can like learn on it very well. You can commute to work back and forth. You can put your luggage, as you said.
Yeah.
I mean, I use a tank bag sometimes and I like a backpack. But yeah, I just think generally overall, my bike out of the two.
Yeah, so the Tempest Roadster's running for the road bikes.
Yeah.
And for the Scramblers, Tempest Scrambler or Desert Scrambler?
I thought I was going to really love the Tempest Scrambler.
Yeah.
But I smiled more with this one. I think sometimes even in videos it was too cheesy. The smile was too. I was like, no, we are not using that. So I was like, yeah. So yes, this one. Just overall, there are things that I didn't like about the exhaust getting hot.
Yeah.
But they're like minor things. They're not like, you know, major things that would put me off it. So yes, the Desert Scrambler is my favourite.
Absolutely. And then between the two of these then, suppose that's what it comes down to, because it is a balance. Are you going to ride more on the road? You know, how much do you need the off-road kind of capabilities that these Scramblers have built in with them, despite being road bikes? So between the two of these, which one are you going to go for?
If I had to choose, I would say my bike.
Yeah?
But because I'm a learner, and I think I need to learn on road more at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more of a priority for me. But I do love the Desert Scrambler, and you know, I think I'd even try a bit more off-road once I pass my test, because I've loved it. It's inspired me to do a bit of off-road, I think.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
I think as far as, you know, off-roading goes, for me, I've definitely spent more time on the road now than I have off of it. And I think for me, with, you know, a 47 horsepower restricted license, a 125 road bike is probably going to be a little bit slow for me for going over longer distance. Amazing around the town, but as soon as you want to get on the dual carriageway, it's not as fast as, you know, some of the other things I've ridden. So for that reason, if I was going to go for a bike that does something that none of my other bikes do, it would be this one. I think I'd have to choose the Tempest Scrambler. It feels like a really cool all-rounder. It's super lightweight but handles really well. You know, I think it's a lot of fun. Off-road, you can put it through some hard stuff and it will manage. My brother's is a great testament to that. He's really put it through some hard times over the last 3 years, and I've seen how well his has held up, how much fun he's had on it, and, you know, I would kind of like that for myself, actually.
Yeah, so overall it's been a really good experience trying out different bikes. Obviously I'm a new rider, so yeah, it's been nice to try a Scrambler style, and also a cafe racer, something a bit more classic. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's a really nice experience.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic experience, and I don't generally ride modern 125s. Never really had the opportunity to do so, and it's been so much fun to have something that's so lightweight. You can throw it around a bit in the corners, you know, something that can go on and off road in the same journey. That's been an awful lot of fun. So a massive thank you to AJS for the opportunity to do this, and thank you all for watching.